Ryan. Grab a
Thank
chair,
you.
get a chair.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm one of the psychiatrists.
Yeah.
And Dr. Bowden had asked one of us to take over because apparently you guys just weren't having a good fit anymore.
Well, I think I was misdiagnosed by Dr. Bowden.
Misdiagnosed with schizophrenia?
Well, she didn't say that I had schizophrenia. She said I had psychosis. But whatever word you want to say, I mean, I think I'm one of the most level-headed people I know.
Okay. Well, how about we have a talk? See if there,
Yeah.
if there's something different that I
It's
can
like,
suggest.
I mean, Dr. Bowden said that my thoughts weren't lining up in a linear fashion.
Mm-hmm.
She said that I tended to jump around from topic to topic.
Okay. But what's your experience?
I think that's completely normal. I think it's completely fine to jump around from topic to topic, or she never gave me an example of a statement that she said based on the bizarreness of my statements, she was diagnosing me with having psychosis.
Okay.
And she only met me for 5 or 10 minutes before she diagnosed me with having psychosis. And I asked my family doctor if she thought that I had a mental illness, and she said, well, I've only known you for a couple years, so I can't make it. She didn't want to get involved. She didn't want to say, Craig, I don't think there's anything wrong with you. And it's, partly because a doctor had already made a claim that I had a mental illness. And, she said that I was hallucinating. Dr. Bowden said I was hallucinating. Well, I've never hallucinated. I don't know. Hallucinating, from what I know, means that you're hearing and seeing things that aren't actually there.
Those are the most common.
I don't know where she would get that idea. I mean, I never told her that I was hallucinating. She kept asking me over and over again, are you experiencing any auditory or visual hallucinations?
Mm-hmm.
And I said no. So I don't know where she got the idea that I was hallucinating, but she put it in the notes. We had a private conversation, kind of like the private conversation that I'm having with you.
Right.
And there was nobody else to witness it.
Mm-hmm.
No proof as to whether I was making bizarre statements or not. It was just all her personal opinion, and in my opinion, it was bias.
Bias.
Yeah, she was biased against me.
Why? Why was she biased against you?
Well, because my previous family doctor, Dr. Wendy Richardson, sent in a letter of a referral to Dr. Bowden, and she said so that's how I got together with Dr. Bowden. But the last doctor's appointment I had with Dr. Wendy Richardson, she said to me, Craig, you're gay, aren't you? And I said, no, I'm sorry, but I couldn't believe that she was saying that to me, and I said, no, I think you got it all wrong. I'm probably the straightest person I know. And she says, well, she said again, well, maybe you're bisexual, she said to me. And I said, no, I'm not sexually attracted to men. Sorry, Dr. Bowden, but you got your assessment of me all wrong. And I said something to the effect of, I think it's time I find a new doctor. And that's when she sent in the referral letter for me to see a psychiatrist. Now, since then, Dr. Bowden's moved to Europe. She left the country.
Who did?
Sorry, not Dr. Bowden, Dr. Richardson.
Okay.
Dr. Richardson's moved to Europe. But yeah, I wanted to sue Dr. Richardson for, she was basically calling me a faggot.
But did she just ask you if you were
She
gay?
said, Craig, you're gay, aren't you? She's basically saying, you know, that I think you're gay. And I don't think a doctor has any. I think it's completely irrelevant for a doctor to say that to me. You know, I think.
Being gay for some people can really affect their mental health, their ability to socialize with people. Also, for gay men, there's different diseases that could perhaps happen. I don't know. So I don't know what her rationale for asking you that was, but.
Well, I mean, I should have said to her, "Do I seem gay to you?" Because I'm not.
Okay.
And
Have you ever spoken to her about being
I was
attracted
like
to
the
men?
no, nothing, nope. No, I couldn't believe that she said that to me. And then, so based on the letter of referral from Dr. Wendy Richardson, I think that's what um, was instrumental in Dr. Bowden's decision to diagnose me with having psychosis.
Mm-hmm. Well, had you had any mental health issues prior to seeing Dr. Bowden?
I've never had any mental health. I've never thought anything was wrong with me mentally.
It seemed like at one point in time you were treated with antidepressants and things for some sort of anxiety.
I think everybody has anxiety. I think everybody gets depressed from time to time. Um, I don't think there is a drug that needs to be, like I feel like I was pressured to take antipsychotic drugs by Dr. Bowden, and now I'm, like I don't know what kind of effect, the long-term effect those would have on me, but I didn't agree with it, and I didn't want to take them, and and I was in the psych ward 3 times in 1 year.
What
The
for?
police the police came to my house and knocked on my door, and they said, "You got to come to the hospital." And actually, well, they knocked on my door, and I didn't answer it right away because I could see it was the police at my door, and they just opened the door and walked right into my house and said, "Okay." I'm like, "I didn't let you in, like how come you just coming into my house?" And they're like, "Well, we wanted to make sure that you weren't going to get anything." Like
Okay.
yeah, that I have no history of assaulting anybody. So
Well, that's not what your wife had said to Dr. Bowden. Apparently, one time you tried to inject her with insulin, another time you tried to
that's
kill her and had the police involved.
no, that's not true.
No.
She lied.
Your wife lied?
Yep. She's assaulted me before, but I never pressed charges on her.
But she had pressed charges on you?
I never did anything. She never called the police. I never did anything. It's all a lie. I've never injected her with insulin. And for someone to take her word for it and not understand that she could be lying about it,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's not a good way to, solve solve a crime.
Yeah, I guess Dr. Richardson had wanted Dr. Bowden to see you because she was concerned about you having increasingly bizarre behavior and you're becoming grandiose with pressured speech, irritability, decreased sleep.
Grandiose?
Yeah, so like, I don't know, having thoughts that maybe you had something more important to do than you actually did, or that you had something extra special about you.
I think everybody has a slightly different brain, because we all have different parents. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody's brains are a little bit different.
Yeah.
But to say that a person has a mental illness based on things like bizarre statements, well, who has the power to determine whether a statement is bizarre enough that a person would require medication? A
Outside.
psychiatrist has that power, right?
Okay. Yeah. There's.
But there's like, you could put in your notes that during our conversation, like, you could manipulate the data, the narrative, and change it and say, well, Craig was showing signs of hallucinations.
Mm-hmm.
Craig was, acting bizarrely. You could say whatever, and there's no witnesses. I
Right.
don't think that's fair. I think I should be in a courtroom with a bunch of other people to determine whether or not they think I have a mental illness or not. And even if a whole bunch of people came together and said I had a mental illness, I wouldn't believe it because I don't believe I have a mental illness. And you can't take refuge in the consensus of other at all times, you know.
Well, I mean, if you're the one that believes you don't have mental illness, but the people who know you well think you have a mental illness, and are exhibiting signs of that, you just wouldn't trust them. You would say
Based
they're
on
lying.
what though? Based on what? What are the examples of my bizarre statements?
Here's one. Um, you've been responding to unseen stimuli and having conversations with the air, and you're
That's not
frequently
true. That's
laughing
not
without
true.
recognizable reason for laughing, and that you would talk about bugs surrounding him and talking to you.
Well, I don't know who wrote that, but they lied. I never said anything like that. I don't know where they would get that idea from.
Apparently, from observing you, like Dr.
Are
Richardson.
you getting that impression from me, or?
Not right now, no, no.
Well,
Um,
thank you for saying that because I act like myself all the time. I'm honest. I'm caring. I have a good personality. People at work like me. I've never had any problems. Like none of my friends have ever said that I've had a mental illness. It was only a psychiatrist, and I know that psychiatry is an $80 billion a year business with the drugs that are the psychiatric drugs that are all paid for by the taxpayers. It's big business. You need people to be mentally ill in order for your business to survive. But I don't believe in mental illness. I think people are a little bit quirky, but I think everybody's a little bit quirky.
well, people can be quirky, but that doesn't make them mentally ill. But I mean, there is such thing as mental illness out there, and sometimes
Uh,
medications are appropriate.
well, I've never met anybody that had a mental illness before that I could tell. I mean,
You should
I
hang
don't.
around with me for a few days, then you'd see.
Well, I've seen people talking to the air, talking to like a lamp post or something like that. I've never done that, but you know what? Maybe there's another reason why they might be talking to a lamp post. Maybe they don't have any friends. Maybe they're, I don't know, but I don't think it's a reason. I don't think drugs are the answer.
Do you think that medications have changed your life in any way?
Well, just imagine what it would be like to be forced to take drugs that you didn't want to take, that you didn't have any belief in.
Oh, I understand that part,
Yeah.
but what about, did they have any change in how well you feel, or how you relate to others, or how well you function in life? Has there been anything good about them?
Well, Dr. Bowden asked me how my libido was.
Right?
And I said, well, why would you be asking me how my libido is? And she says, well, these drugs that we're giving you lower your libido.
They can, yeah. So that's why she would ask, to make sure you're not getting side effects like that.
I mean, what kind of person would want to give drugs that lower people's libidos?
Well, the point isn't to lower libido, but
Yeah.
sometimes it can happen.
Uh-huh.
The point is to help somebody feel less distressed, be able to think more organized, be able to plan and execute their plans, that sort of thing. But
Like I just when I went to the hospital for a stomach ache a couple
yeah,
months ago, and all the doctors were asking me if I was hallucinating. How would you feel if you were diagnosed with a mental illness and you went to the hospital and all the doctors asked you if you were hallucinating because it's in the notes that you had been hallucinating, even though there's no proof that anyone's ever hallucinating? Like, can you imagine seeing things and hearing things that aren't there? I don't even think that's possible.
how do you mean?
Like, what would I be seeing? Like, how would I still be able to have a driver's license if I'm hearing and seeing things that aren't actually there? Wouldn't that affect my driving?
It could, depending on like what sort of thing. Sometimes people will just hear, whispers in the background, or people calling their names. Sometimes they'll hear conversations like between people that aren't there. I get
Well,
lots of people that'll tell me that they think that their neighbors are, trying to communicate with them through the walls, even from great distances, using weird electronic
yeah.
devices that are impossible. I mean, and so those are
Well,
most
they're
common.
saying that, but
Yeah.
we don't know if they're actually hearing voices or not, or if they're just lying, because sometimes people who commit crimes, like serious crimes,
Yeah.
they won't want to take accountability for their own actions,
Right.
and they'll say, "Well, I was hearing voices that were telling," because
Yeah.
they want to get a lesser of a punishment,
Yeah.
because so they'll say, you know, I'm sick or I'm ill, I'm mentally ill, it wasn't me. All it is people not taking responsibility for their own actions. If someone has bad behavior,
Hmm.
they have to take accountability, for their bad behavior. I mean, they can't just blame it on, hearing voices and things like that, because, if you tell if you if you tell a lie enough times, people are going to start to believe it.
I mean, sometimes that can happen. So, so you don't think the medications have done anything good for you? No.
No,
How are things going in your life? Are you feeling things are pretty good?
well, I just like, I don't I think that, you have good days and you have bad days, and everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, you know, pushing drugs on people are the answer, especially when, the like if they were able to discover the cure for, depression and anxiety and sadness and all that, and they were able to put it in a drug to give to people. Wouldn't that be the greatest medical discovery of all time?
Yeah, I suppose if we had something that allowed people to feel happy and be great,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you
But
know,
these drugs, the antipsychotic drugs, they don't they don't make you. I didn't feel any different actually. I felt like it was like a placebo. Yeah.
and so you said you came to the hospital 3 times. Was it 3 times in the past? For
I I've been in the psych ward 3 times in 1 year.
where was that?
Um, Twice here in Penticton
Yeah.
and once in Langley.
And why were you admitted to the hospital?
Well, the first 2 times, the police just showed up at my door, like randomly, and said, Craig, you gotta come to the hospital." And I said, "I don't need to go to the hospital." And they said, "No, you're coming to the hospital." And they put me in handcuffs.
Hmm.
And they took me to the hospital. And the first time, they injected me with all kinds of drugs. Some of them made me start twitching. Then they had some other drugs that got me to stop twitching. My face was like twitching, and I was having like a reaction to it. And yeah, I got yeah, 2 weeks I had to spend pacing the hallways, not being able to work, not being able to support my family.
Hmm.
Um, and I just feel like that time was stolen from me. And my worst fear is getting committed to the hospital and being locked up and being told I'm mentally ill or criminally insane or whatever
Hmm.
word you want to use it, and then I'm being punished for when I haven't even committed a crime.
So even before you met Dr. Bowden, you'd been in the hospital 3 times
No, no.
since you met Dr. Bowden.
Yeah, since Dr. Bowden started the whole thing, and
Okay.
now I just I wish someone would go in their computers and do some spring cleaning on my file, and because like, do you think I'd get better treatment or worse treatment if a doctor is operating on me and they know that I have a mental they know from the information that I've been diagnosed with a mental illness? I'd probably get worse treatment.
Well, I know that sometimes it's sad about this, but sometimes people with mental health history do get treated differently when they present to the emergency department, for example. Um, not always. It sort of depends on what's going on and what their history is, but it can affect how people, interact with you.
Yeah, and it's nothing that I've done. It's all because Dr. Bowden. I guess she doesn't believe in freedom of speech, because freedom of speech means you're allowed to say whatever you want as long as it's not harmful to yourself or anybody else around you.
Right.
It's called freedom of speech, and apparently, if the words don't come out of my mouth correctly, then a psychiatrist can lock me up and say that I'm ill.
Well, yeah, we typically don't lock people up for speaking their mind. Just sometimes, if it seems like they've had an illness that puts themselves at risk, other people at risk, or they're at risk of having their life worsen and deteriorate, then we have the legal grounds to have somebody committed to hospital.
Where would you get the idea, like, that you can predict what I'm gonna do in the future?
Well, we don't necessarily predict.
Like, why do you think that I'm gonna, like, every time I saw Dr. Bowden, first thing she would always ask me is, Craig, do you have any feelings of harming yourself or anybody else around you?
And what would you say?
I'd say, of course not.
Well, then that's the answer.
But she would ask me every time I would see her, and
those are important things, aren't they?
yeah, but they're backhanded questions,
Well, they aren't.
Yeah, it's like a slap in the face. It's like, why do you think is that what you think of me? Is that what you think of me, that I'm gonna harm somebody else or myself when I've never attempted suicide? I've never assaulted anybody, and yeah, you guys got the wrong guy. Like,
Those are important things to ask some people, because in mental health, a lot of people can have a change in their mood, and they can start to struggle and feel like life isn't worth living, or they feel in danger.
yeah, but everybody can do that though.
That's why we ask, because we don't want people to die and feel so bad that they don't want to live.
Yeah, but I never said that I ever wanted to harm anybody else or myself. I never said that. So I don't know why she would.
Because she's concerned about you.
But what is it that got her to be concerned about me? And I think she's done more harm to me than help to me.
That's a standard question. We ask people to make sure that they're okay. That's all.
She used the private interview to change the narrative, to manipulate the narrative, and next thing you know, people are asking me if I'm hallucinating. Apparently, it's in the notes that I was hallucinating. I never told her I was hallucinating, so she just lied in the notes.
No, she wrote, collateral sources share that he has been responding to unseen stimuli, while you deny that.
Collateral sources.
Yeah,
so that's not proof, though. That means anybody could say, if they don't like me, they could say, Craig's mentally ill, and then so a psychiatrist is gonna use what somebody else said about me to get me locked up without committing a crime. I think it's outrageous.
Well, I don't have records of your hospitalization, but Dr. Bowden
I was put in solitary confinement in Langley.
Okay, I don't have records of that.
Yep. And solitary confinement. And I hated every second I was in the psych ward.
Apparently you believed you were a different species from humankind?
I told Dr. Bowden, she said that to me. She said, apparently you thought you were a human species, or you weren't a human or something. And I said, I'm a human. I have rights. And I think, Dr. Bowden, you've taken my rights away from me. And then she said, that's when she goes, Craig, I think we're having a breakdown. I'm like, what do you mean we're having a breakdown? I'm speaking my mind.
Okay. Dr. Bowden said that she didn't believe that you were certifiable under the Mental Health Act, though, so you're not getting forced to take medication.
You know what? I really think that you need to use your own brain to decide whether you think I have a mental illness or not. Because Dr. Bowden, she's a very dangerous person, locking people up who don't deserve to be locked up.
Using any substances of abuse lately, like marijuana or anything?
Code red, level 6. Cancel code red, level 6. Cancel code red, level 6.
I think that's kind of a personal question. I don't.
Yeah, that's
I
the
mean,
type of stuff we ask around here.
yeah, but you're just gonna use it against me, right? And how would you know if I was telling you the truth if I said I wasn't?
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I would just hope that you're being an honest human being. But I don't know. You seem to be very suspicious of other people's motives.
No,
Often
I'm.
suggest that you yourself have struggled being truthful. So, are you somebody who would lie to other people?
No, I'm an honest person.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Me too. I think that's the best policy is to try to be honest with people.
Well, I've met some other doctors that haven't been honest.
Mm-hmm. That's unfortunate. I mean, I'm not going to say that it can't happen. I know Dr. Bowden tends to be quite honest, though.
I find that to be completely an incorrect summary of Dr. Bowden.
There's notes back here from 2007 that said that you had been tried on medications as antidepressants, like Paxil, Effexor, and Celexa. They all had side effects. But you said you didn't have any.
Well, I wanted to try them just to see what they were like, and I didn't like them, so I stopped taking them.
Why would you want to try them?
Well, my doctor at the time, I think, was trying to encourage me to take them because he would say things like, if you're having trouble sleeping at night, if you're having mood swings, which is everybody has trouble sleeping at night. Everybody has mood swings, it was.
Apparently, you were an excessive worrier at the time. You said.
Well, worrying. There's nothing that's not human about worrying, but I don't think it was excessive. I've never. Yeah. I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah, I guess back in 2007 you had pancreatitis too, and you were using some substances like alcohol, cocaine, and ecstasy back then. Is that a part of your life at all anymore?
No.
No? Okay. And are you continuing to work at, was it Safeway and
KFC, yeah. Yeah, got my work boots on. I had to come straight from work because I had to get off work early today to come here, yeah.
Thankfully, it's not a long walk.
Yeah.
The work's going well?
Yep.
And are you able to be happy in your life?
Yep.
Are you able to feel safe and secure generally?
Well, every day that I'm not in the psych ward is when I was in the psych ward, I hated every second of my life.
And when was the last time you were there? Do you recall?
You probably have that information.
For some reason, I don't have it here. I mean, I could look it up on the computer,
Yeah.
I suppose, but was it a long time ago or over the last couple of years? Or?
Yeah, it was. It's probably over a year ago.
Okay. And you and your wife are still together?
Yeah.
And how are things there? Are you getting along okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any kids or anything?
No.
And you have diabetes, is that right?
Yep.
And how's your diabetes management?
Good. I've been managing my diabetes since I was 29 years old, and I'm 47 right now. So I've got a monitor here. Yeah. Yeah, 8.0.
Ooh,
That's
sweet.
good. Yeah.
And you're managing with insulin then?
Yep.
And do you do multiple daily injections, or how do you manage?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have any other physical health problems?
Nope. Just elevated liver enzymes.
And so as far as medications, you got insulin. That's pretty much it, aside from the Abilify Maintainer. And that's the injection, the antipsychotic medication.
Yeah.
When's the last time you would have had that?
About 4 months ago.
And Have you felt any better since stopping it?
I never wanted to take it in the first place.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if it feels better since you stopped it, if it was causing you any problems.
I don't feel the difference. Yeah, I never I never felt anything from those drugs.
Okay. And looking back, you can't think of anything that was going on, any symptoms or experiences you're having that would have led you to have to be admitted
Well,
to the
this all
hospital?
started with Dr. Wendy Richardson when she said, "Craig, you're gay, aren't you?" She made me feel real uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And she says, "Well, maybe you're bisexual." And I just I couldn't believe my doctor was telling me that.
Well,
Like, it was completely out of line. She has no business even being a doctor if she's gonna ask someone, because that's a very private question that has nothing to do with health, right?
well, as I was saying before, there are some health complications that can come from people's sexual orientation. Sometimes it's their own feelings about it. Sometimes it's experiences. But if you never gave any indication that you had any issues there, I don't know what would have prompted her to ask. But it doesn't mean that she's trying to insult you or anything.
I took it as an insult, yeah, because she knew I was married to a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and I had been going to her for probably 5 years.
Who's your doctor now?
Dr. McDonald.
Is that going well?
Well, Dr. McDonald, wants to go along with Dr. Bowden's diagnosis, and doesn't want to speak on whether she thinks I'm mentally ill or not. I think she could have at least said, "No, Craig, I think there's nothing wrong with you." I think that she could have stepped up to the and had used her own opinion instead of going just with what some other doctor said.
Well, my concern is that you had gone into the hospital, Langley and here, and usually it doesn't happen unless somebody's having some sort of symptoms. So I'm worried that you may be at risk of having similar symptoms or whatever caused
And what
that.
are the symptoms?
I don't know. You said you aren't aware of having any at the time.
Well, I asked Dr. Bowden what the symptoms were because she kept avoiding the question.
Yeah.
And I said, what are the examples that indicated to you that I had a mental illness? And she said, "Oh, well, the bizarreness of your statements, your thoughts weren't lining up in a linear fashion." And I don't know if she was trying to get smart with me, but I know what the word linear means.
Yeah.
It basically means like I was thinking outside the box,
Well,
which used to be a good thing.
when we think about linear thoughts, it means that ideas sort of move forward in a way that can be understood, and you get from the beginning of your conversation to the end, like following a path that makes sense. So one thought carries on to the next in a logical way. And when it becomes non-linear, that means like somebody will start speaking about something here, and then maybe start speaking about things that seem unrelated or like.
Freedom of speech.
Well, yeah, but.
I mean, there's no limit to freedom of speech.
Right. Now, this isn't about what you were saying, but how you were saying it. So you were asking what symptoms that she was suggesting, and she said that perhaps it seemed like you weren't able to express yourself in a linear way.
In Canada, we have freedom of expression,
Yeah.
freedom of speech.
Yeah. So.
I don't. I guess psychiatrists don't believe in freedom of speech, because I should be able to say whatever I want. No matter if I want to say I'm a hard-boiled egg, I should be able to say that.
You can. The thing is, if you actually believed you were a hard-boiled egg, you'd have.
I don't know why the
Well,
psychiatrists have to get involved in with with people and having conversations, private conversations that nobody else can witness what's happened in our conversation. And I think it's completely unfair, that you can say whatever you want about. Dr. Bowden said Dr. Bowden, she said I was hallucinating, even though I denied ever having
She said
hallucinations.
You denied hallucinations, but other people witnessed you to have behaviors suggestive that you were hallucinating.
Oh, and so that's hearsay.
Right.
So that's not evidence.
Well, it's not a criminal proceeding, is it?
Well, getting locked up by a psychiatrist
I don't know
is,
about those situations.
is like psychiatry does more to punish people who haven't committed any crimes.
But Dr. Bowden wasn't the only one that had you come to the hospital. Apparently, you were admitted under Dr. Pham here before.
Well, Dr. Pham, no, I was in the hospital when I met Dr. Pham.
Okay.
And yeah, Dr. Pham just went along with exactly with what Dr. Bowden said, which is probably what you're going to do.
Well, all I can say is that
because you all work as a team, right?
Well, we work individually, but we tend to have similar ideas if we're like.
Yeah, but you don't want to say that Dr. Bowden misdiagnosed me, because that would create a rift between you two.
Well, it could, but typically, if I had.
I mean, you should say that Dr. Bowden misdiagnosed me, and that I deserve a full reevaluation, because she lied about me. She lied in our private conversation. She lied in the notes about me, and yeah, I'm really frustrated and upset about it.
So what do you want from today?
I would appreciate it if you went in your computer and you put in the computer that I was misdiagnosed as having a mental illness. I don't have a mental illness, and I don't think you want to do that.
I won't do that, especially when you've said that you can say whatever you want, including, you know.
Well, as long as it's not harmful to yourself or anybody else around you. Like, there are some limits to freedom of speech,
right,
like you inciting violence and stuff like that.
I'm not going to suggest you're a violent person or anything. What I'm going to suggest is today when we spoke, you're quite convinced you don't have issues with mental illness, that you didn't present as like grandiose or disorganized or anything like that. But I don't know. Exactly.
Like, am I talking to the air? Like, even if I was talking to the air, I don't think that's a good enough reason to lock somebody up.
Well, it's not, unless there's concerns about safety and well-being. So I have no plans to lock you up. And I'm not...
Because, I mean, I would lose my job.
If you got locked up?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to work.
Well, you wouldn't be locked up for long, most likely. Anyway, this is neither here nor there, because we're not talking about...
I feel like I've been molested by the psychiatric community.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want the help. I mean, where's my right to... Like, if I was to hurt myself and go to the hospital, if I wanted to, I could refuse the services of the hospital if I wanted to. But I somehow I can't refuse the services of psychiatry.
Well, you can't refuse the services of the hospital if, in certain circumstances, like say you came in and say you had really bad...
Well, if I broke my finger, say if I broke my finger.
Yeah.
Like, and they wanted to put it in a cast or something like that. I could say, no, I'm going home.
Right, but if you had, say, diabetes, and you came into the hospital saying, I don't have diabetes, I don't want any sort of treatment for this, you would die, right, without treatment for your diabetes.
Well, nobody monitors my insulin injections. Nobody, like...
That's because you're trusted. You're trusted to do that on your own.
Well, that's because I don't want to die.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's say somebody came into the hospital and they had a life-threatening illness, and they said, I don't want treatment for this, but they couldn't explain why, and they couldn't show that they understood the illness that they have or what the options for treatment would be. They can be treated against their will. They would be deemed incapable of making those decisions. But, you don't, I mean, busted finger is not going to kill you, so if you don't really want it set, you can make that decision, even if it's not a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Anyway. I'm not going to enforce any treatment or anything. I can see you again if you would like, but it's up to you.
This was, I was hoping for a complete reevaluation, but you're not going to give that to me.
I cannot, I don't think, based on our interview today, say he clearly has no mental health issues at all, because you may have back then.
Don't you think if if say for yourself you were being you know, like cared for by the Mental Health Act or whatever, and you had psychiatrists calling you and meeting with you and stuff like that. Don't you think it would it would encourage you to commit suicide, because there's no escape psychiatry?
Some people can be pretty upset by it, but you have an escape. You can leave anytime. You don't even have to speak to me if you don't want. You can say, see you later, and leave. Nobody's forcing you to do anything.
Yeah, but the cops might show up. If the reason I'm here is because I don't want the cops taking me to, like, they said, oh,
I guarantee, I do not think the police need to be involved, and I do not.
I don't know why the police were involved in the first place.
I don't know.
You know, like I asked Dr. Bowden why she diagnosed me with psychosis, and she said, well, you're exhibiting the signs and the symptoms of having psychosis. And I said, you know, what were the signs and everything? She goes, well, one of the things was you stormed out of my office. Well, I didn't storm out of her office till after she diagnosed me with having psychosis. So that couldn't have been one of the deciding factors on me having psychosis. So I don't know why she said that. But yeah, like when she was diagnosed me with having psychosis,
Yeah.
I stood up and I said, this is outrageous. This is based on nothing. And I got up and I left and I went home. 15 minutes later, the police knocked on my door and they came in my house. They handcuffed me, they arrested me, they took me back. You said, you got to come back to the hospital. They said, you're not under arrest, but we have to tell you that you're under arrest. Or no, sorry, they said, what was
You're
it?
not under arrest, but we're apprehending you.
Well, they said, you're not under arrest, but yeah, we have to take you into the hospital.
I think they say they
And
apprehend people under the Mental Health Act. Maybe that's what they.
well, anyways, I was taken here,
Yeah.
and you know, there's no escape here. You know, this is you know, like a hospital is like a jail sometimes. You know, and that's what this is. It's a jail, and yeah, just being locked up without committing a crime. I feel like my rights have been taken away from me.
They were.
I'm you know, I feel like I haven't been vindicated yet. I wanted to sue Dr. Bowden. I wanted to sue Dr. Wendy Richardson. I wanted to sue I wanted to sue everybody at one point.
Well, I'm hoping that you can just live your life and find some peace and contentment. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, I can't do that if I've got somebody that asking me, "Are you okay? Like, how's your mental health and all this?" You know. You know, I don't need that. I don't like. I'm 47 years old. I don't need a babysitter.
Well, I don't think that you need to come see me then, because if you were to come see me in the future, I would ask if you're okay.
Yeah,
That's
but
what I
now
do.
every time I go to the hospital,
Yeah.
for whatever it is, you know, whether I break my leg or whatever, I'm gonna go there and they're gonna have it in the notes that I was diagnosed with a mental illness, and they're gonna ask me if I'm hallucinating. Maybe they won't believe me. Maybe they think, oh, you're just hallucinating or something. You know, it's totally damaged my life. Like, it's my reputation has been damaged. Like, there's a group of friends that I used to be friends with, until they found out through my wife that I was in the psych ward, and now they don't want to be friends with me anymore, and they go around town calling me cuckoo. And the other friends that I have, I don't tell them that I go to the psych ward,
Yeah, this is
because
all your private
it's
stuff. Like, our conversation doesn't get shared except for on your medical record.
but when a doctor tells you that you have a mental illness, it carries a lot of weight,
It does.
and because people believe doctors, and psychiatrists, I think, seem to think that they don't need any concrete evidence. Like, it's all here. It's all just kind of wishy-washy.
A lot of it kind of is. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. That means a lot.
You know, we don't have tests that say this is definitive.
Yeah, exactly. And it's profit driven, you know, because the big pharmaceutical companies
So-
are making a lot of money off of this, and it's paid for by the taxpayers.
That being said, I don't get paid if you're on medications or not. I get paid exactly the same if you walk out of here with no meds, no diagnosis. So you know. Anyway, we gotta wrap up.
Yeah, I think it's just a colossal waste of resources.
I
I'm
understand.
sorry, but you know, like
For some people, it
yeah, I
actually
mean,
does
you're
help.
actually really easy to talk to. Actually, I do appreciate that. Yeah,
Well, you're welcome.
because I was coming into here thinking like, okay, I don't want to argue with you or anything like that. I don't want to like lose my temper and get upset or anything. And you've actually been really easy to talk to, so I appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome. I try to be.
Yeah.
I'm always I try to be forthright and honest.
Yeah.
But
But I just want this all to go away, you know,
I
and
can't make it go away entirely.
yeah,
But
it's just I'm stuck with this for the rest of my
But it
life.
doesn't have to be what drives your life, right? You can
But-
still make your choices.
But
and
how
live
am
life
I
freely.
gonna run for mayor if
Nobody
it,
ever has to know.